Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today you'll be building a modern town and fulfilling its residents' desires. Now you'll be getting the resources at the best prices, building houses, and finding the right buyers to sell them to. Grinivil is an economic sandboxy game where you'll be cooperating but still competing to win. It's for 2 to 5 players with 6-player components available separately. It takes 2 to 3 hours to play, is for ages 14 and up, and published by Rudy 3 Publishing. Now it's being crowdfunded right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works, and I'll see you on the other side. This is a crowdfunding preview, so all the art and components you see here, they're not final. These are prototypes. To see the most up-to-date art and components, check the link in the description of this video. Welcome to the start of Grinivil, this is how the game might start, where there is some tiles here, there's some roads, there's different parcels of land, there's also some different buildings. Now, the main ways to get points in this game are to be building up buildings and possibly selling them to attract, residents that want specific buildings in Grinivil. Now there's 3 types of buildings in the game. There are houses, which are always put on residential lots once they have the nice bushes around them. There are commerce buildings. These are things like, commercial type things like bus stops. And then there are what's called welfare buildings, sort of like city type buildings, where this is like a police station. And these ones are always on sort of these the concrete pads, and these are like residential. Now each player will start with a lot of things like player aids and trees and a warehouse with resources and some workers and owner markers and some blocks that you're going to build with. Some residents, these will be kept secret, money will be kept secret, you'll have some trees and such, so everyone's going to start with a lot of things. And the 3 types of buildings, the brown, blue, and yellow, are going to be certain heights. Like these ones are going to be 2 stories tall, but the welfare building is going to be 3 stories tall. And over the course of the game, you're going to be spending resources to build certain floors of those buildings and gaining points as you build those. For example, if I did have 1 stone and 3 wood, I'd be able to build this. Now we're going to go over how you select actions and how that all works later, but generally speaking, if you're trying to build this, that's what you'd need to spend. I don't have that now, but if I did, I'd be able to build things like this. And the board in a 3-dimensional way will actually show this. So the municipality owned this to start the game and it's under construction. But since those houses are only 2 stories tall, once the second story is done, it's constructed, it's done. It's now for sale. It shows my worker that helped build that. And this house could possibly be sold. Now, this is just at a high level. Let's fast forward the game a little bit and show you why you'd want to sell houses, how you get points for them, and trying to get the right buildings built for the right residents. Now, there's many different buildings for the different types. For example, for the commerce buildings, from left to right, top to bottom, we have things like banks, or the bowling alley, or a school, or a shopping center, or a pub, or a garden center, or a pet store, a playground, or even a sports facility. And in the welfare sort of city buildings there, you have like the hospital, the church, the post office, the retirement facility, or the water treatment plant. These are different buildings that different residents are going to want to have around them before they buy and move in. So here's Grinivil as it starts to grow, and as you can see, more tiles, parcels were built, more buildings were built, there's some trees put out, and it does start to build up to a real city as the game goes on. Now one of the main concepts of this game is that you're cooperating with other people, but yet you're still competing. For example, like this player is the player playing black, and they're the ones that actually added this parcel, so they're the one that owns the parcel. They actually started to build here, but because they own this parcel, if I were to go build the 2nd floor of this, I actually have to pay who owned that parcel in order to have participation fee and things like that. And that participation fee actually goes up the more and more residents that actually moved in. Here are houses, like this one's for sale, this one's for sale, this one's under construction. These ones were for sale at one point, but then they got roofs because they actually had residents moved in. We're going to show you how that happens here once a resident buys a house and moves in. But the more and more people residents that Grinivil has, the higher and higher this sort of participation fee gets. So everything is sort of intertwined and connected with each other. You'll also notice that, of course, with many of these buildings, like this one, we have the player playing black and the brown player. They both built these sort of together, and then it got sold, and they both would get compensated. And they're going to get compensated based upon what other buildings are here. So the main concept of the game is that you're working together with other players to try to all achieve your your own individual goals that you're going for. It's going to be points, and a lot of that is going to be from the residents. So let's show you an example of what happens if we're able to sell a house and move a resident in, because this is one of the main ways you get points both during the game and at the end. So let's say, again, we're playing white. We built the second story of this house, and it's now for sale. For example, we spent 1 stone, 3 wood, we put the second floor. Then optionally, you actually have some other things that you could do immediately by paying some more money. So I could sell the house now by paying 15. Later on, we'll show you how you can also sell doing normal type of actions. But let's say we are going to sell this now. Now again, you are sort of cooperating with other people. In this case, the municipality was the one that started to build this. And that's done because as this tile was laid, this shows you that something has, the first floor gets started there. Now, each other player, when you sell it, you have to pay them 15 grinnies, money. And in this case, it's the municipality, so I'd actually have to pay it to the bank. But if there was another player that had done this, I would have to pay it to them before I get anything from selling the house, because they sort of helped you build it. You guys sort of pay them for that. So again, from an economic game perspective, everything is thematically tied, both money and points, and how you work together, building houses, getting residents in, selling houses, and things like that. So by doing that, immediately I'm going to get 5 points. Now there is a score track that tracks your points. We'll come back to this later when we talk about some bonuses. Now we're also going to get 11 grinnies, money, and 3 more for each tree that's planted, and the max of 50, for that. So we look at this. This is where it is. There's a tree here. And it goes over here. There's a tree here. There's a tree. 8 of them. And that's because this road sort of stops and allows us to go over. It's because we can't go past the roads. The whole planting area we can see is bigger because this road didn't stop, and that just happened to be the type of tile that was placed there. So here we actually have 8 trees that are surrounding sort of the planting area that's not blocked by roads to Paula here. So 8 times 3 is 24. So we're getting 24 and 11. That's how much money we're getting there. Now she had another requirement, which she needed more than 4 trees. She needed to have at least 5 or she doesn't even want to come in. So some people have some specific requirements as well. Now this is also a mandatory requirement, is she needs to have a bus station within 2 distance of where she's at. Now again, you can see here, 2 distance from the bus station. Here's where she is. The road she's on doesn't cost any distance, so that's still 0. This one is the first road. This is the second. So she's within 2 to get to a bus station, and this is mandatory. This would have had to have been there in order for me to move or to sell this house to this resident. Now this is interesting. This is going to get 3 points for each player that helped put the bus station together. So look at this. We have the municipality who's not playing this game, and we have the player that's playing gray. That gray player is now getting 3 points because they helped build something that Paula wanted when Paula moved in. Now let's look at this. This gray bar are optional locations that you'll gain, that Paula likes, but they're not mandatory. Here, let's look at the coffee shop. She wants to be within 3 road distance of a coffee shop. This one doesn't cost anything. It's not, it's her own road. So we have 1 road, 2 roads, and the 3rd road goes right here. So we do have this 3rd row. So this says 4 points for each player that helped at the coffee shop. So the brown and gray players are both getting 4 points for putting that coffee shop there. Now she also optionally wanted a cultural activity center. And if this was there, now it is there, but watch this. Here's her road, it's 0 roads there, so it's 1 road. And normally we would have been able to try to go around here and come up here, but this is not a constructed road if you look at it closely, because if you look at this, this is a completed road. This one here is known as a construction road. There's some dirt there, but it's not built. So those people are not going to get that money because there's no road to get there yet when Paula was, had moved in. Now, if there was a road here, then it says that 28 grinnies money would have been divided by the players. So these 2 players would have split the 28. If it was the same player, they would have gotten all 28, but these 2 would have each have split the 28 if it was there. Now, these ones here are end game scoring. And the interesting thing is that as more and more residents continue to move in, basically, you're going to have a stack of cards like this, and at the end of the game, you're going to look at the bottom wave of all of them, and you're going to look at each of these buildings that were possibly built. And for each of these, it will show you another number of points. Now, these buildings are always 3 floors high because they're the welfare buildings. This says 12 points for each floor, whoever built each floor. So if you built all 3 floors, you're getting 12 times 3. If you built one of these 3 floors, you're getting 12. And it doesn't matter who this resident is, who moved them in, who sold the house. You're trying to build these buildings or be parts of it in order to get a portion of some of these points. So that's some of the main ways that you score points in the game and some of the main concepts. And of course, once the house is sold, you put one of these cool little roofs on it to show that. So keep in mind that you're managing resources and trees and blocks and workers and money and possible residents that are in your portfolio. And you're going to be doing that to do all these things that we just mentioned. Now, resources themselves are a puzzle because you have this warehouse and each building can only contain one type. Now, you can rearrange them, but they can also be in one type. You can also get smaller warehouses to add on as well, so you can hold more resources and things like that. But even the resources are a little bit of a puzzle. Some of the other things you'll be doing is gathering more residents into your portfolio from this display here. So as players are doing that, you can see what types of things that they are looking for, how far away they might want them, and what end game points are. Now, those are going to be secret in whoever's hands has them, but they're going to be trying to get them out because that's a main way of getting points and money. So you're paying attention to what people are taking, which residents they're taking, which ones they might be bringing out, and what types of things you might want to be building into a spot that you think they might be occupying. And there's also different things you're doing with resources. Sometimes you're buying, sometimes you're selling. There's a certain amount seeded at the beginning of the game depending on the amount of players. And depending on where these are at in the market, you're going to be spending or gaining whether you're selling or buying these things. So if this one right here costs 3, well, now this one's going to cost 4 for any of these, and then 5 as it gets more. And it costs more as it gets more scarce. But if I were to sell this, then I'm going to sell it, and as there's more and more, you sell it for less and less. So there's a moving market here, again, intertwined with what everybody else is doing. Now let's talk a little bit about actions. This is the time action ring. These are the actions you're going to be able to take. You're always going clockwise around here, and certain actions are going to take you a certain amount of time thematically. Now, interesting to note the point that some of the tiles, the main ones like building and getting resources, are always here, and then there's a certain amount of different colored tiles that come out that are somewhat random, and then the order that they're in is somewhat random. So every game is going to have a little bit interesting different puzzle as to which actions you're doing when, which ones before others, and how long each things are going to take. For example, on your turn, you can go clockwise as far as you want. So I could do this one or this one or this one. I go as far as you want. But like in some other games, when you pass an action like this, you've passed it, so which things are you going to jump to? So if you went to this one, this allows you to buy as many resources as you want, and you pay the cost as I talked about earlier, depending on the red value there, and you're going to be placing them in your warehouse. Keeping in mind, if I need a lot of wood this turn, let's say I didn't even have this piece, you can rearrange things. So for example, maybe I do something like this because I know that I'm going to want to get a total of 3 wood. I have 1 here, 2 stone, because maybe I want to build this second floor here of the house, and I need to have 3 wood there, right? So you can move things around, store them. There's a little puzzle there. Now again, this is a thematic aspect that this would cost me 1 time, which means when I'm done with this action, I would go like this. Now, if that's the case, when it comes back to me on my next turn, I need to move forward. So this action, it's available to you, but it's not very good. I'll tell you why in just a moment. Because I need to really move forward if I want to play the game efficiently. So, I could move like this. So, but if, let's say I wanted to buy these resources, but then I wanted to get money afterwards so that I have money to do with things afterwards. You can buy time, which is spending 3 grinnies for gaining 1 time. So if I did this, I spent money on resources, but then I spent 3 to gain a time, then I don't move. Then I stay there. So next time when it's my turn, I can move forward, go here, and get money without having to go all the way around the board again. So this aspect of money and time and actions is all interconnected here. So here, if I take 3 money, I don't spend any time. But if I do 10, I have to spend 3, and because it's red, it means I cannot buy time with this. So if I did this, I would have to go 1, 2, 3 here for my next turn. Now let's say I was here. This is like a sell a house action. We talked about selling a house. Now instead of going right here, you actually, because you've gone through this whole board, you do a little bit of upkeep here. Now here you're going to pay 5 tax plus 3 for every worker that's out on the board next to a building. Then you're going to draw 4 random resources from a bag and seed at the market. But then you're going to take any workers that you have on the construction spots and you're going to gain them back. So it allows you to sort of, because you start with 3, there's ways of getting more workers. There's some actions that do that. But I had to put this worker out in order to build something there for the first time, and this was out there. So let's say this, I must have built these in the same round, for example, and they're still out there. That gives me less ability to do things, but once I go around that time track, I'm able to get these back and use them in other places. So again, there's a little bit of time crunch there as well. Now, I'm not going to go over all the different actions in the game, but there are quite a few different ones, like auctioning off different resources, or even gaining a new resident to be able to place, or maybe buying trees or planting trees. Or maybe you're gaining random resources or paying more time and getting the resource you want in a random one. Maybe here you actually would place a worker, and until the next time you come around here, you're going to be able to spend one resource less. Or maybe you're going to convert money to points with this special little interesting four-sided die there. And again, some of these allow you to put workers there and have an ability for the whole next round, if you will. Again, you're also going to be sort of building roads. And as you build roads, you'll move up this bonus track and get certain bonuses the more and more roads that you build. Now, this will continue until any player has 2 or less blocks left, and that's going to start sort of a sudden death round where players are basically going to be taking one more round around the time action ring, and players are going to end at different times because of that. But once they end, you're going to go to final scoring, and with this, you already have points on the board. You're going to get all the points from all the residents that are out there, depending on who built what and how many floors of each. You're going to be able to get basically 1 point for every $10. But if you have any of these still in your hand, you're going to lose 10 points for these. So you want to make sure that you don't take too many of these throughout the game, and whoever has the most points is the winner. Well, there you have Grinivil. And as I showed in the overview, it's an economic game where you need to cooperate with others to build and attract the right buyers, but you're still out for victory for yourself, all while using a unique action selection mechanism. If you'd like to see the most up-to-date art and components and the different pledge levels, you can click the link below me in the description of this video, and it will take you directly to the crowdfunding project page, and I'm sure that Rudy3 Publishing would love your support.